Now get the insights of public budget analyst Zy-za Nadine Suzara. Thank you so much for joining us, Zy-za. Is this 2024 budget defective in your view? Zy-za?
Sorry, I was mute.
Yes.
Good evening, Rico. Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Is it defective, this 2024 budget?
I would say yes, because for one, because of the 450 billion peso increase in the total unprogrammed appropriations, the total budget of the Philippines ended up with 450 billion pesos higher as well. So that's from 5.7 trillion pesos to 6.2 trillion pesos. And on its face, that's unconstitutional because there is a prohibition that says Congress cannot increase the total appropriations of the budget level that was proposed by the President. But again, as I said, because of the 450 billion peso increase in the unprogrammed appropriations, we're now seeing a total national budget that's higher than what the President proposed back in August.
But Zy-za, this unprogrammed funds of 450 billion pesos, no? Is there a precedent in past budgets that unprogrammed funds were this large in amount?
There are precedents in the additional appropriations or the total level of the unprogrammed appropriations. This happened back in 2022 at the height of the pandemic when the 2022 budget was being discussed. It happened again in 2023 and again in the 2024 national budget. But there are differences in the total levels of increases in the unprogrammed appropriations. In 2022, the increase was 1 billion pesos. In 2023, that went up to 219 billion pesos. And surprisingly, astoundingly, in the 2024 national budget, we saw that it increased by 450 billion pesos. So that's more than double of the increase that we observed in the 2023 national budget.
But with all of these questions and controversies about this additional unprogrammed funds of 450 billion pesos, the budget secretary came to its defense right away. Amena Pangandaman assures safety measures are in place before unprogrammed expenditures could be utilized. And they says these unprogrammed appropriations are only standby funds. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree that the unprogrammed appropriations by definition are standby appropriations. Historically, only new and excess revenue collections can be used in order to trigger releases from the unprogrammed funds because the unprogrammed funds acts like a blank check for the executive branch. But in the 2024 national budget, and this raises some concern among budget analysts like myself, is the fact that they included the GOCC funds. And this is very reminiscent of the earlier proposals, the earlier provisions on how to fund the capitalization of the Maharlika investment fund. So it's not only the new or excess revenue collections that could trigger the release of unprogrammed appropriations. Therefore, it will not have much of an effect in the deficit. But it now allows the executive branch to tap into GOCC funds, and that makes it discretionary.
Okay, let's define GOCCs. Those are government-owned, controlled corporations. So can these unprogrammed funds, Zy-za, be redirected to confidential funds without transparency or accountability?
Well, not to the confidential funds because the confidential funds are not part of the unprogrammed appropriations. There is actually a list, as it was mentioned in the broadcast earlier, the unprogrammed funds as it was enacted includes some lump sum appropriations and a bunch of itemized appropriations. So that grew from just 8 purposes to 51 purposes in the enacted version. So those are the list of projects that can be funded by the unprogrammed appropriations.
All right. So Senator Koko Pimentel will be filing this petition before the Supreme Court. And if it goes before the Supreme Court and they debate on it, and if declared unconstitutional, what are the legal consequences? What are the liabilities for the part of Congress?
Well, there could be practical implications. So that raises the question, will the 2024 General Appropriations Act be therefore declared illegal? And if it is illegal, does that mean that we have to return the budget to Congress and have a reenactment of the 2024 budget, meaning a new version that wouldn't include the 450 billion pesos?
All right.
What will be the corrective measures if in case the Supreme Court rules that it is unconstitutional? And thirdly, if by the time that the Supreme Court has ruled on the constitutionality or unconstitutionality of the unprogrammed appropriations and funds were already released to various government agencies, does that mean that these government agencies will have to revert the funds to the Treasury? And will the projects funded out of those funds be declared unconstitutional and illegal as well?
All right. So, but it also takes time, no, for the Supreme Court to come out with a decision. We'll have to wait and see how this eventually plays out. But what if the Supreme Court says it is constitutional, this 2024 budget and the controversial unprogrammed funds? Will this budget really work for the people? After all, this is our taxpayers' money. Will it lift more of our kababayans from poverty and illiteracy? Zy-za.
Well, there are definitely projects funded in the national budget, many socio-economic projects, a lot of infrastructure projects. But I always say this, what signals the real priorities of government are the large increases or the avalanches in the budget that we see. And where did we see that go in the 2024 national budget? It primarily went to the DPWH, which as a long-time analyst of the budget, it has always gone to pork barrel projects, especially when it happens behind closed doors during the BICAM. So there's that aspect of the budget. So even if we say, and to be fair to our legislators and the executive branch who put together the budget, there are budgets for different socio-economic programs. But the question is, with the declaration of constitutionality, will it then normalize the practice of bumping out, reallocating, deprioritizing a bunch of other urgent projects, like let's say, for example, the payment for the compensation of COVID-19 healthcare workers? It's been 3 years and it has stayed there in the unprogrammed appropriation and they haven't been fully paid. So if we keep seeing this kind of practice where more urgent funding requirements are deprioritized in order to accommodate pork, then what does that say about the kind of budget decision-making of our lawmakers?
Okay, let's just hope and pray that this money of taxpayers will be used properly and for the good of the country and the Filipino people. Public budget analyst Zy-za Nadine Suzara, great to have you with us. Thanks for your insights.